Hi there everybody, just going to do a quick whiz through of some slides I presented out recently at a conference on authenticity around making your values valuable. We picked up on four main areas really, a couple of D's to keep it short and snappy. So how do we define authenticity, how do we describe it for ourselves and others, how do we develop it, crucially of course, and how do we develop and therefore take it further forward then and demonstrate it. So those are the four D's we're going to look at in a little bit of detail in this short video. In terms of those definitions, there's lots of different words that we associate with authenticity. Probably the top one there stands out mostly for me anyway, is about values, but it's also about your purpose, being transparent. Ethics comes through quite a lot. We're seeing that quite a lot now, and some of the corporate scandals are coming through. They sort of cite ethics more than perhaps authenticity of leaders or businesses. It's also about the climate as well of the organisation. That's a bit like the culture, I suppose, another word to use in there. Principles, another word's coming through quite a bit, and honesty and trust. But really, in terms of defining authenticity, it's whatever it means to you really is most important. I like to think about being an author, so you come up with your own words and phrases that really make authenticity sing for you, because it's about expressing yourself really, which is really important. The second thing then is how you describe authenticity, and this is like a hack that I put together, and just think about a couple of things. Firstly, think about, analyze your identity. So to think about yourself, that's a bit of a work in. So think of, from the previous slide, a principle or a value, something that's important to you. And then you add to that a skill, might acquire something new or even apply something that's been a bit latent for a while. And that's the working, if you like. That's something you need to kind of work on. And then the third part of it is aligning yourself to the external environment, and that's the work out. So if you look at the three things, just going to go back in time a little bit. A work in, what have you analyze your internal identity, a principle, a practice, a value, whatever it might be. You acquire a skill or apply a skill that you already have, but then you've got to align yourself to the external environment. That might be friends and social, and that might obviously be a work situation, and that's the real skill and real art of how we describe authenticity. And then on the right hand side, how do we really describe it, is authenticity is about skillfully expressing yourself. So how do you skillfully take everything from the left hand side and express it for yourself in the external environment around you? So I hope that's helpful. It's sort of a way to break it down, describe it. You've got the internal, you've got the external. In the middle of that, you've got your skills, and on the right hand side, you've got what it might mean to you. Let's look at development. This is a great three-part question, really nice and simple. On the left hand side, stick in one value that is important to you. Obviously, there's multiple values that exist, but choose one value that is important to you. When did you first recognize this value? And really encourage you to go back in time and think about early transformative experiences, good or bad or otherwise, long or short, doesn't matter. And think about when you first recognized that value. It came up on your agenda, it was important to you. Now, of course, you wouldn't have necessarily called it that, creativity or innovation at a young age. But think about when you first recognized it. When did it crop up for you? And then the next question, which is crucial, is when did you first take a stand for this value? Often there's a big lag here, of course there is, but think about when you took a stand for it. You made a choice, stood up for something, did something important to you, and crucially to other people as well, because when you take a stand for something, not only do you notice, but others consciously or otherwise will notice as well. So a really good way to develop it is just give yourself permission to find out what values are important to you. And often people just stop there really, because that is authenticity. But actually you've got to do a bit more. When did you recognize this value? Because that can really help you give the blueprint of permission to express it fully, and on the right hand side take a stand for it as well. So quite a nice way to think about how you develop authenticity beyond the left hand side. Demonstration wise, what happens in different parts of the organisations at different levels. So on the left hand side you can express it as an individual, and that's clearly something you can take away from today's video. You might be able to express it and with and encourage a team, and of course organisation wide, I mentioned the corporate scandals earlier on, that's crucial as well. And across the top, you've got the knowing and doing and being. So you might just know what authenticity is, and hopefully this short video is giving you a sense of that. Doing, that's a bit of application. How can you do it at an individual level for yourself? And being, then, is actually more natural and happens without too much thought. So you can think about that maturity across the top of knowing what it is, doing it, expressing it, and actually doing it without even noticing. And then where do you express that? Is that for yourself, within a team environment, or a team expressing their authenticity, and even at an organisational level? Let's fill in some gaps though, because it's quite a nice way to end this video. Think about, I'll start at the top again, if you're knowing what authenticity is for yourself, resources are good. This one is coming straight at you in terms of video, books and other things. In terms on the right hand side then, In terms of doing it, it might be the process. So what's the individual process? And then across the far side then, in terms of individual, being is about a community of like-minded people who feel like they can share and express themselves fully. So those are the three things you could do at an individual level to develop authenticity. Then if we shift that into a team environment, of course we can train people or provide those resources, further forward really, but in more of a training environment, very, very typical, tick in the box. And this really is now getting to quite an organizational level in terms of developing authenticity as a culture or as a climate or as an approach or a philosophy. Coaching is quite a nice little addition to authenticity as well, so actually doing it to encourage it, to promote it, that can work well as a team. And then finally on the right hand side, in terms of how can a team demonstrate and be authentic, you could think about online learning as well. So it's sort of quite a nice learning strand in the middle there. And they can chop and change, these things aren't stuck in these boxes, but just want to give you some ideas of what you could be doing to develop authenticity at a team level. Let's take the bottom row then. So this is about organization. So you really need an organization and role models within that organization. And of course, if you're not seeing it role model, then that can be detrimental to your efforts. It needs to be part of strategies, so principles, values, process, operating principles, whatever one would call them, are really, really important. How do you express that in your strategy? And ultimately on the right hand side, then you're into your values then. And that's it. And then you can make your values of value. So really, if you think about authenticity, it's about defining it for you uniquely. It's about describing it, developing it, and here's about demonstrating. And now we've just widened up the canvas a little bit, because all those D's that have stacked up so far can operate it. You just know it, you do it, and you be it. And of course, here's the challenge. You can do it as an individual, but you can't just draw the line there. That's the easy one. And then you can work towards more perhaps in team organization. So there you go. Hope you found that useful and that you can start to make your values of value.